Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Sherman Crancer. I want to say thank you so much for joining the voice of the Microsoft partner. Today's going to be an amazing show. Today we've got two great speakers that we're going to be talking about. And one of them, 7-time Microsoft Partner of the Year award winner. We spoke with him last night. We talked about all the different questions. You're going to be able to have some amazing stuff to come back with. From today. Also, we have the new IAMCP Corner, and we'll get into that in just a second. But let's just go quickly over the agenda for today, as we got a jam-packed agenda for today. First, we're going to be doing the IAMCP Corner, talking a little bit about that. Next, we have discovery. We have business development and sales and marketing. Now, each one of these sections, we're going to have 3 to 4 questions. We also want to make sure that everybody here has the opportunity to ask questions, because this is a great opportunity. We'll also, so you can do that through either LinkedIn. If you're coming from LinkedIn Live, go ahead and put some questions in there. We're monitoring it right now. And or if you're on the Teams instance, go ahead and just ask questions there. They will send them over to us when we're kind of talking here, and I can maybe ping somebody here. I will come off of this and get onto the team site after this instance to do some networking for 15-20 minutes afterwards. If you would like to, you're free to stay. And lastly, we are going to have, I think, a raffle coming off for the people that are on the Teams instance. Lastly, before we get into the just housekeeping item, if you want to get an invitation to the Teams instance that we do instead of coming through LinkedIn Live, please, we'll send a link to everybody here. We'll post a link. Just send us a quick email asking to get on our list, and then we'll invite you to the Teams platform. And the neat thing about the Teams platform is there's a lot of interaction in there. It's really awesome. People are talking back and forth. It's a great networking opportunity. Last month we had over 277 people watched this show, 277 partners, and hopefully we can break 300, this time. And we will have another one of these at the end of June. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring in our two panelists here. We have Jerod Powell from Ergos, formerly Infinite Consulting, and Paul Solsky. Jerod, would you mind just introducing yourself real quick, just so the people kind of know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go over to Paul?
Sure. I'm Jerod Powell. I was the president and founder of Infinite Consulting, and I did that for 14 years, and recently sold my business to Ergos in July of 2020.
Awesome.
And now I'm the regional VP.
Oh, cool. All right, Paul, you go next.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Paul Solsky. I head up AIM International in my day job, but the other day job I have is with the IAMCP, and I have 2 roles there. The first being the partnering lead to help all members build better, more collaborative partnerships across the US and the world. And the second is the IAMCP Seattle chapter president. And today I'd like to speak to you about the benefits of the IAMCP as members.
Awesome. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't be even in this position if it wasn't for the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. Sincerely, I was in telecommunications. I was just starting a business, and I got involved with IMCP down in Southern California. And that's how I got into Microsoft. Let me tell you, it was never on my radar, never, ever even close. But so I owe just about everything to them. Great organization. And why don't we go ahead and get started with that? We'll go ahead and actually just hand it over to Paul. Paul's going to bring up one slide today and talk about IAMCP. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Sherman. So I just wanted to take a few minutes for those of you who haven't heard about the IAMCP or heard about it on a peripheral basis, just to outline what is the purpose and what are the benefits, and also to invite you to join. So the IAMCP, International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, has been in existence for about 26 years. So it's not a new organization. And throughout that time, it has grown to become the largest Microsoft partner community. And I would stress that it's an independent partner community, although we enjoy tremendous support from Microsoft executives, both in terms of having them come and present it to us and share their visions and in the process opportunities, but also in taking our feedback and applying it to their initiatives, programs, and even directions. So we're very privileged to have that relationship with Microsoft, and our members benefit from that as well. Our real goal is to help our members, who are essentially all Microsoft partners, to grow their businesses. And we do this in three ways. Firstly, it's through connecting and building relationships at the local chapter level. And there are chapters in most cities in the United States, across Europe, and in Asia as well, and Australia. And the idea is that the local groups get together and talk about what's happening in the marketplace right now, what are the best practices, what works, what doesn't work, but principally to connect, to network. And recently we've kicked off a P2P program where we're really accelerating that P2P activity. So we have this combination of meetings for the purpose of partnering at the local chapter level. So a chapter is typically in a city like Seattle. And then we have regional meetings, so across Americas, which is United States, Canada, and Latin America, where we then align by industries, by solutions, by product types. So we have manufacturing industry special interest group. We have business applications special interest group. And partners whose businesses are focused in those areas get together. We share some new knowledge, and then we spend time on getting to know each other and sharing opportunities and going to market together. So connecting and collaborating is a very key goal of ours, and we really do provide a lot of capability to do that. Secondly is learning, and I mentioned that we have Microsoft executives, and we also have Microsoft field people coming to us and sharing with us what their programs are, and that lets members to better understand what is happening out there, and also we get to learn from other partners who during the discussions talk about what works and what doesn't work. And so it's through experts, from Microsoft speakers, and through other partners. And it's really great to have this community of Microsoft partners who openly come to, well, right now it's Teams, but normally in normal times we meet face to face. And even though they may be competitors, they do share information and they find ways to work together. And also to grow. And the way we see growth is we share opportunities in the marketplace. We talk about where the puck is going to be and how to prepare for that. We see shifts taking in the marketplace, such as the wholesale move to Teams and embracing AI and other Microsoft technologies. And then we also have Microsoft speakers that talk about new programs, new initiatives, and new benefits that partners can take advantage of in sales, in marketing, in certification. So it's a really a rounded set of benefits that provides advantage to our members in helping to grow their businesses. Plus, it's really great just to have a local community and an expanded community that can share ideas and work together. So typically there are monthly chapter meetings where the local groups get to know each other, the local partners get to know each other. We also have these regional special interest groups, and now we're expanding those to international. So if you want to take your business global, or you have a customer that has a global footprint and you need them to be supported by a partner in a separate in a foreign location, a foreign country, then the IAMCP is a great vehicle to build those relationships so that you can act globally as well. Because of the privileged relationship that we have with Microsoft, we have Microsoft executives join us. It's a great opportunity for our members to connect and build relationship with Microsoft executives, which would normally be difficult to get to. So all of these benefits are $250 a year for membership, and you become part of this global community, and you don't have to just participate in your local chapter. You can participate in any chapter and any meeting globally. So I would invite you to join at iamcp.org/join us and see how you can utilize all these benefits for yourselves. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to Sherman and the Crancer Group for the opportunity to talk about the IAMCP.
All right, fantastic. Thanks again, Paul. Really do appreciate it. And then Paul, his company, really helps, ISVs enter the U.S. market, as well as if you're looking. So please reach out to Paul. He helps, he facilitates a program for Microsoft. Really fantastic. All right, so let's kind of get into this here. The purpose of the Voice of the Microsoft Partner is to learn. There's no commercial here. We're not trying to sell anything. What we're trying to do is learn from the best and the brightest. We've had 3 consecutive Microsoft executives, and now we have Jerod Powell, 7-time award Microsoft Partner of the Year award winner. Who else to get the best type of information? I want you to learn. I want you to listen. I want you to take away some things today from this, and we really, really appreciate their stuff. So let's go and get into it. Discovery. I'm going to kind of just jump right in with you, Jerod. Our very first question we have really is, how did you get into IT? What is the superhero story, and what is your background?
Well, thanks, Sherman. Sure. So I got into IT, honestly, I went to college for IT, honestly, just trade school. I took a year off high school, turned down some scholarships, and sort of had a good time for a year. And it was like, I need to do something. So I went to trade school, and I quit I was working like 3 jobs when I graduated, and quit all those, grabbed a paper, and first company I called hired me. It was a tech support company. They did support for a company called Quantex, which at the time was the 3rd largest direct PC manufacturer in the world, behind Dell and Gateway. Mm-hmm. Well, long story short, there was 8 people when I was hired. There was 250 when I left. I reported directly to the CEO, and everybody reported to me on the floor. And I got my MCSE and Novell certifications while I was there. And Microsoft hired me, and so I left and went to Microsoft, and away I went. From there, I ended up in the Silicon Valley doing a startup thing, and helped build a pretty large MSP/hoster that I ended up being the president of, and but I didn't have any ownership in, and so I exited that and started Infinite in 2006, and then obviously had a lot of success there. So I would say the superhero story, I don't know, it's probably pulling off getting Infinite started, to be honest. Maybe that was some crazy times, but I bootstrapped with like $2,500 and a ton of work, which was kind of a leap of faith, leaving, but that worked out. But it's hard to say it's not the 7-time Partner of the Year award either. I don't think that I did 6 of them in a row, skipped a year, and then hit the 7th. And so that was pretty cool times. Obviously got a lot of visibility from Microsoft, and on the bright side of things, we massively grew our revenue through that time. And so I think that's really what helped me kind of break through that $5 million barrier that we were always sort of up against, and ultimately get the company sold.
So let me ask you, you and I used to talk a lot when I was at Microsoft, and I think I always admired how forward thinking you are. And I think that's what we're kind of going with today's story, really, is kind of how you approach building your business, right? How you approach these things. So, I know so you sold your company to a company called Ergos. Can you help me understand what is Ergos' maybe value proposition, and how have you positioned it within the industry?
Sure. Well, I think that we helped a lot with the value proposition, to be honest, in that I wouldn't consider us a traditional MSP by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, when I sold, we really considered ourselves a digital transformation provider. DXP is what we called ourselves, because that's really what we enabled for our clients, and that's what we effectively sold them. We weren't looking to just do break fix and do the help desk and fix your endpoints. We wanted to do managed development. We wanted to do business intelligence. We wanted to help you gain a competitive advantage and dominate your competition. And when we were able to do that for our clients, they stay there forever. So I had very, very sticky clients. I had several clients that were with me for 15 years the whole time, that are now Ergos clients and still there. And so I think that's the real value proposition is our breadth of expertise was pretty large. And in fact, probably one of the things we were worst at, ironically, was probably the help desk part. On the right side, Ergos is fantastic at that. I just didn't have the people to do it. So Ergos is fantastic at that. And then we bring that whole engineering layer in, and cloud managed services and stuff like that. And I think that is pretty unique. I don't know of very many MSPs that try to do that. It can be an Achilles heel. I think for Ergos, it's easier than it was for us because they're much, much larger. They're one of the largest MSPs in the United States. And so yeah, I think that's interesting. They're a true national MSP, and they've really used a lot of, well, if you look at their website, they effectively used ours for the most part, and largely because I think there's some of the unique offerings that we had. And then we also differentiated pretty early on with our kind of unique approach to security, and that's through a tool we call now Ergo Shield, is Infinite Shield. It's sort of my brainchild, and that's a pretty cool tool, heavily integrated with the Microsoft Security Graph API, doing all sorts of cool stuff there. And instead of building another security tool, it really helps manage the process of becoming secure for an organization and derives executive visibility with the dashboards and scorecards. And it's funny, you put a score in front of somebody, and they just want their score to increase. And I found that was a good way to get executives truly engaged in cybersecurity at their organization, is get them competitive. And so that worked really well. So those are some of the differentiators, I think.
So let me ask you this. Where do you think the industry is going, and what Microsoft products should we look to incorporate in service offerings kind of moving forward? Like, help us. You've always been a visionary with that kind of stuff. So I think we can really take some information kind of from where you're coming. So what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously security is going to be a big part of it. I think that it's sort of a necessary thing anyway, and it is exciting. I think that's cool, but it is necessary. I think that if I think about where the industry is going, I still, we talked about this a while ago, I still think the MSP of the future is going to be a very app-focused, solution-focused type of MSP, as endpoints really don't require all that much management anymore and become, cloud, whether they're delivered straight out of the cloud or that industry just commoditizes down to the point there's just not much to do there. Then it's going to be more focusing on business solutions and how you help customers gain a competitive advantage, do business quicker, whatever the optimized productivity, whatever the case. I think security will be a big part of that. Obviously, we need to get a handle on that just to stop the bleeding that we're seeing in the industry, obviously. But and so when I think about Microsoft products, I mean, their security stack is quite frankly pretty amazing. Even when compared to some of the best solutions out on the market, they just have their breadth of solutions, and the fact that they're all integrated with artificial intelligence and everything on the back end. That's what the cornerstone really of our security solution. And it really helped us accelerate our sales. I mean, through the COVID stuff, we grew significantly by through that offering, through our MSSP offering. That's, other products that I think are hot that MSPs should be maybe taking a look at. I always really was a fan of doing business intelligence for clients. And so like we were doing Azure Synapses, obviously a lot of Power BI stuff. And then of course, Azure Managed Services. And that was, managing their infrastructure, but oftentimes we were doing development there too, either through integrating products, integrating line of business systems to automate, certain processes, or just for reporting and visibility and mining data. And so, that's sort of how I see the industry evolving to a certain extent, is maybe deeper specialization in some of those type of tools that help accelerate business and optimize productivity and stuff. I just think that inevitably sort of has to lean that way as there's less and less to do at the endpoint. Probably not for the next 10 years or anything is will get that crazy, but we do see it happening. I mean, if you look at all the MSPs being bought and stuff like that, if nothing else, that the endpoint type stuff will probably consolidate down to a pretty small group. And then I think that that's where these specializations in other products and stuff will come into play. And obviously compliance is going to be another big managed offering. I think that will be very hot in the years to come, and already is just managed compliance. Just because, it's going to be coming kind of full force from, various government entities and stuff like that, I think, just to stop the cybersecurity issues that we're having.
So we had a question from the audience here that came in. Do you think government regulation will happen? And if so, is it sooner than later? Are they going to come in and what are your just initial thoughts on that? Or do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I know it's going to. I mean, there's no question. It already is. It's already happening. I mean, you got CCPA, you got several states with versions of CCPA coming out. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is it has to, because it's been the Wild West for too long. And it'd be interesting to see if policies come down to help Americans control their data and their privacy better, like you see in the EU and most other countries. I don't think any other country subjected to quite the marketing avalanche that most Americans are. But so who knows on that front? But I think absolutely regulation is going to have to come, and especially now that you see these big core infrastructure services places getting hit, the meat company getting hit, the pipeline getting hit. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's definitely gonna be regulation that gets pushed down for that. And so I would start getting up for it now and get ahead of it and get an offering together. I think the MSP of the future is almost by default going to have to be a compliance expert as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this last night too. I mean, gosh, I talk about packaging all the time, and this is what we do with our partners. We help them like transform into the partner of tomorrow. You did this like 5 years ago. Like one of your key things was packaging, right? And it was creating a security package, which was, I was like, wow, this is really great. And you're kind of coming to market. And we're going to get into a little bit about that because we're going to talk about margins and why Jerod thought about that, many years ago. And a lot of us, the reason why you always hear me talking about it and verticalizing that kind of thing. It actually kind of segues into this. How are you thinking about verticals? I know Microsoft talks about, we're hearing a lot about verticals. I'm saying a lot about verticals because it's like, hey, let's try to solve a problem, right? It's hard to get new target acquisition, new customers, but how are you thinking about verticals shaping your business to address needs or solutions instead of just product? Because too many people are just Office 365 or Azure, right? So I mean, you can agree with me. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, maybe one mistake I made with my business is I thought many, many years ago that focusing on a vertical was probably the way to go, to be honest. And we just never did. Both Ergos and Infinite had specializations in certain verticals. Ergos grew up in Texas, so they got a lot of energy type company and oil companies that they have deep specialization in. We have a lot of semiconductor expertise because we grew up in the Bay Area, and as well as we did a lot of medical stuff. But while we marketed kind of vertical solutions, I never really bit the bullet and went full vertical. But I think that MSPs who successfully transition and get into a niche that is a vertical have a lot more success, honestly. You see them grow a lot faster. I think that number one, they have a much more focused, smaller target to aim at from a marketing perspective. So I think it helps you get your solutions out in front of the audience that's going to be buying easier. It also probably reduces the cost on your marketing by refining it. And then the other real issue is if you're everything to everyone, where do you even start with a marketing plan? You're just regurgitating regurgitating the same crap on your site that every other MSP has out there, and that we do, everything in the world for you. And so that just, that message gets old and tiring. And so I think if by focusing on a vertical, number one, I think that it makes it also easier to skill up your people, because you have also a more refined set of tasks and stuff that you're going to perform. And then I also think that, I'm a big fan of apps and creating solutions and stuff like that, that it becomes then much more viable to go out and create a product to solve a specific problem in a vertical, and then maybe take that leap into an MSP that also has an application that they're delivering and taking to market. So yeah, I think it's a great idea if you can pull it off, and something I wish I would have done, but never did.
So, one thing we did mention last night, right, was, how partners are building their business. And we know that a lot of our partners build the business on the I'm on fire method, Rich, right? It's like somebody's on fire. You got a referral to somebody else. Somebody called you up and referred you in, and you went and solved that problem, and now you got a client, right? But then I was talking to you last night about, net new acquisition. And you came up with this thing like, you want to be able to be found. What if somebody has that problem? Can you kind of extrapolate a little bit on that? And I think it kind of coincides with vertical a little bit, but I really liked your answer that we were talking about yesterday.
Sure. Well, I think that, a pure MSP contract sell isn't the easiest thing in the world to sell. The reality is you got to catch somebody with the need at the time they're looking for the need, and usually that involves some sort of pain that they're going through at the time. So whether that be their old provider, they outgrew them, or they're not doing a good job, or they had, Joe from down the street who was their neighbor's kid doing IT and they've outgrown him, or whatever the case may be, or a cybersecurity incident. But the reality is they have that pain, and if you can get in front of them when they have that pain, 9 times out of 10 you're going to close the deal. I always did. If a customer had a pain and the lead managed to, I got to talk to them, it's a done deal. Very few of those did I lose, and I bet you that's probably a lot of the MSP's experience, because they're having pain. They don't want to go shopping. It's not the most fun thing probably in the world to shop for, is IT services. So if you sound good, know what you're doing, you're probably going to get the gig. So the real trick is get your marketing to a point that you're in front of them when they have the pain. And I will say that that's not the easiest thing in the world. It sounds easy, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. At least it wasn't for me. I think it requires probably a larger spend than a lot of MSPs are comfortable with. But I think it's worth it. And certainly we invested a lot in that area, and had varying degrees of success. I think that having a great marketing person to drive that stuff is good. And then there's also some managed offerings that you can do. But I think that for the pure managed offerings, if you don't have an internal person, then you really need to vet them pretty closely and make sure they have some success, and then put some, tie their payments to your success in some manner. But yeah, I think, it's key. If you get in front of a client when they're having pain, then boom, you're done dealing. How we often did that is through referrals, from just the clients, and that, the Bay Area seems big, but it's very small. It's very small in terms of, everybody seems to know everybody. And so some exec, is having pain, they call an exec that happened to be one of our clients, and we would get a lot of our referrals come in there. So I think networking would be a good way to do it, as well. And there's some other creative methods that you could probably do, chamber of commerce type stuff. I used to do a lot of these leads meetings where I would pass leads to people, they pass leads to me, and I got a ton of leads out of there. And usually, at least if I were going to sell a managed services contract, it involved pain. Of course, we did get a lot of our MSP sales by leading with cloud, getting a cloud solution in there first, and then closing the deal on the back end of the managed services, the managed service contract on the back of that, and that worked pretty well also. So. Awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And the main thing is, people hate to sit in front of a vendor, right? I mean, I hate sitting in front of a car salesperson, but there's always that adversarial thing right away, right? I mean, like, that sucks. You want to go get the car, but you don't want to do that. But it's a whole different thing when you have a problem. Like, I got a problem. I got to solve this problem. Who has the expertise to solve that problem? Oh, wait a minute. Let me look at them. Oh, wait, look, this company, they specialize in financial services, and they're showing that they solve these problems. Hey, I want to talk to them, because the other thing too is there's risk involved, right? For them making decisions. And if they're on fire, this is the thing about this. If they're on fire, they have a problem. They've already made a bad choice, right? They may have gone with somebody who doesn't. So they can't risk it. All right, so let's go ahead and I think we're going into business development now. I think we already kind of pushed that through. Let's get into the next one. All right, so let's talk about margins here a little bit. You built a Partner of the Year award winner in the past. How did you look at margins and packaging? What did you focus on to build such a profitable business practice?
Well, one of our focuses was, make sure we focused on and built offerings that provided at least a 55% gross margin. And we talked about that yesterday as well. And I think that's for a number of years at Infinite, I wasn't getting that. I was probably getting something more like, I don't know, sometimes 25 or something. And you might be losing money at that level, to be honest. So yeah, 55% margin, and then in order to get there, we would always do packaging. And so, I mean, I think the second BPOS came out, one of the first things we did is put it into our managed services offering. It was a little more difficult then because of the way the billing and stuff was done. It was much easier once CSP came out and you own the billing relationship. And yeah, I mean, if you fast forward, from BPOS days to when CSP was released, we would package everything up from Azure, Office 365, and security all into just a simple offering, which we call the Infinite Technology Transformation Services. And it's just, here you go, here's all of it. And I think that by packaging, number one, I think you differentiate. You're not just out reselling, Microsoft's product then, right? You've actually created a solution offering, and we branded those offerings ourselves. You're using the names of your products that you've come up with. I'm not calling Office 365 something different. It's just simply part of, and it's listed as, included in whatever, we happen to call our offering. Like if we called, Infinite Shield was our managed security service. And that was, a package of a whole bunch of Microsoft products and a few other things. And then obviously services, and then our tool that we invented and created. And so when you do that, you're kind of selling your own package. You almost have like a little product that you're selling then at that point. So I think it adds a lot of street credit. I think it also is I think easier to market, create brochures for, and stuff like that. It's also even easier to bill for, to be honest. So I think it optimizes kind of operations in a lot of ways as well. But you also increase the value of those products individually by packaging them up, is what I found, because how a customer perceives that package is that it's a higher value than these single products separately, right? For whatever reason, they just feel like, okay, I'm getting all this, and it just feels like more value, and so you're able to charge more money for it, and so. That's how we went about it, and it worked. It wasn't uncommon for us to give $175 to $200 a person in our contracts, which is pretty high by MSP standards.
There's a question from the audience that actually came in, pretty good one. What was your typical customer size that you were going after when you're building your Partner of the Year company?
My favorite customer size was about 200 people, but our average customer size when I sold was 100, just over 100 people. I really liked businesses that were cruising past 100 fast, and we kind of had a specialty in helping customers that were growing fast, scale fast. By getting cloud and stuff like that in place for them. I have countless examples of that, but one that stands out, and I think I can say this because there's a case study on our site for it, but it was Elf Cosmetics, and they were smaller, and they ramped, super fast, I think from like a couple hundred people to over 1,000, well over 1,000 now. And we come in and structured their environment to support that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I liked, but my favorite customer size was anywhere from 100 to 200 people. I think that's where I made the most margin. You kind of have to be careful of the type of company, because things can be suddenly very complex, because the complexity of a network doesn't necessarily scale linearly, in that, you can have this pretty basic environment until somewhere in that 200 range, complexity gets added big time, right? You have these more advanced line of business systems, many more systems that you have to deal with. So that can get a little hairy, but as long as you're getting the right amount of money for it and have the people that can support it, that doesn't matter necessarily. And then we always would, make sure our agreements were structured in such a way that for stuff like line of business systems, they had to be vendor support. We weren't gonna, own their CRM and stuff like that. We would help support it, but if you were having a problem with your accounting tool, like not reconciling or whatever, it wasn't doing what it's supposed to, we weren't necessarily going to fix that for you. We would just, can you get to it, sort of thing. And then we would liaise the problem out to the vendor, for sure. But yeah, so I would say, I loved about 100 user, 100 person customers, but anywhere in that, 100 to 200 range was great for us. And that's what largely, I liked, $10,000 contracts, all day. I was a huge fan of. So if I could get $10,000 or more out of an MSP contract, I was pretty happy. But not that I wouldn't take the 5,000s and the 2,000s; those are great too. But I just found that seemed to be a sweet spot. And if I looked at our profitability per client, by far it was the most in the 100 to 200 range clients, employee clients.
You mentioned something yesterday too. I thought was interesting when we're talking about client acquisition. That because your packaging was really security focused, that you'd get in a lot of times. You'd get in with security first, right? And then you'd get the full managed services. Maybe can you help me just understand that a little bit, like extrapolate on that a little bit?
Well, the brilliance of our tool is it used the Security Graph API, and it was really about managing the process of becoming secure. But we also hooked into all the secure score stuff, and then we came out and extrapolated our own score. And then all we needed for a client to get a score was to then go in and put in their O365 credentials and then authorize us for read on their Azure AD, and we would pull in and generate a score. And all this happened within like 20 seconds. And so we would just send those out to free. Customers would get the score. Of course, I mean, most of the time the score is well below 100. Let's put it that way. So and kind of through our research and stuff, I knew that a customer needed to be at about a 350 with our tool to be considered reasonably safe in the current threat landscape that we're facing today. And I mean, most customers are going to be more like a 40, which is, I mean, is horrible. And that was almost without question. They were below 100. I've seen one customer out of like 600 ever that we ran the tool on, and the first time they were above 100 score. And so we use that as a sales tool because we could offer that free. It was super light for us for them to go and log in. Boom, we pull the information out of Microsoft. And then the other cool part is we could give them prescriptive guidance on how to go and deal with that. So we would spit out a plan of here's the plan of action to go solve this. And the problem is all that deals with essentially the managed services that you have going on. So if all that's not necessarily right, or your Office 365 tenant's not configured correctly to best practices, and Azure's not configured for best practices, it's right there in black and white. And then boom, we would get the contract. And that's how it went down. I mean, that's maybe, I guess I didn't feel it's underhanded. I mean, at the end of the day, the stuff wasn't configured right. So, but it worked really well. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's such a critical component. I mean, and a lot of times, I remember, it's always interesting when we did these SBA presentations, they would send like 500-600 people when I was doing what is the cloud. Right? What is the cloud? Yeah. How do you do this? Or what is Power BI? But when we had a security one, we'd get like 100 people. And I always was like, gosh, everybody, I should have like 1,000 people on this one, not 100. And it's very interesting. So they don't see that, and they put it kind of in the back of the mind. But if you can come there and fix that, put yourself in that position, especially right now where you're seeing attacks coming from left, right, and center, fix that first. Because if the MSPs inside is not fixing that, not atoning to that, it really shows your expertise, right? You're like, no, this is so critical. We've got to fix this. We've got to make sure, using that. So what are some key mistakes that you see IT companies making when building a successful practice?
Yeah, well, certainly there's a lot of mistakes to make when you're building your practice, and I've probably made a lot of them over the years. But I think that one is probably just insufficient financial planning and unrealistic goals. Thinking that it's easier than it is. I think a lot of people come into this industry, being a good engineer, thinking that's going to be a piece of cake, and it's the managed services business is an animal, and it's much more difficult, I think, than most people give it credit for. And so, I think that's one of them. And just having somebody, either yourself or having somebody on staff that truly understands financials and can help you roadmap and make sure you have money where it needs to be, when it needs to be there. Make sure you have money and budget for marketing and the things that you need to do to really go out there and go after growth, and not just, land a few deals and then be stagnant instead of you see a lot of MSPs that will grow to $1 million or $1.5 million and then just stay there for 10 years, for a very long time. And that's usually due to insufficient investment or financial planning, stuff like that. The other thing is, I think that, just lack of establishing what it is they're actually trying to accomplish. What's your destination? And as they say, if you don't have a destination, that you're going after, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? And so I think that's pretty key: finding who you are, what your destination is, what your key value proposition is, and just who you are. And so, and then not having automated price increases in their contracts is a big one. A lot of MSPs shy away from that. I never did. That's absolutely something you need to be doing. The problem is that it's being done to you as an MSP by all of your vendors, and so you sort of have to pass that along. And then a huge mistake, especially if the MSP is being bought to sell, is not putting enough value on getting a contract. You got to have 1 year to 2 year, 3 year contracts. Use everybody. There's no month to month going on period. Because the problem is when you go to sell, those are basically thrown out. It might as well be project work. You'll get some value for them, but you're not going to get the 4x, 5x, 6x, 8x, whatever the madness is they're paying these days. You're not going to get that if you don't have contracts and good contracts. So have a lawyer do it. Don't just go steal one. Make sure it's a solid contract. And I see that pretty constant. I'm doing a lot of M&A now, and a lot of MSPs get burnt by not having people on 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. And so another big thing that I did, certainly many times, because it took me a while to learn that lesson, was accepting the clients that weren't a good fit. They can lose you more money than you might know, and it's just you can kind of tell when they're not going to be a good fit. And you want the revenue, but some revenue isn't worth it. That's just all there is to it. So you got to learn to pick the right ones. And it's okay to say no, that you're not a good fit, and refer them off. And you can be nice about that. Give them to your competitor down the street. They can deal with it. But usually that client's probably not a good fit for any MSP in my experience. But yes. And then a big one is just not a strong enough emphasis on marketing and sales. A lot of MSPs, I think that the MSPs that you see be real successful, they oftentimes are marketing or sales guys that start the company, not necessarily engineers. When you see it the other way around, I think that sales and marketing tends to get ignored, or they just don't know how to do it. And so they're not able to grow quite as fast. Yeah. On the flip side, I've seen a lot of sales guys start MSPs and they just rock and roll because they understand, I guess, that world. And I'm an engineer, so I was also hamstrung by that a little bit, but I hired people that knew more than I did, and it sort of worked out. Yeah.
It's so strange, you have the IT companies that are the majority of our IT companies are 90% engineering and 10% sales and marketing, and that sales and marketing is one person. It's the owner, right? And the marketing is somebody that is related. I hate to say it that way, but it's somebody they're related to, and they're like, the step uncle who can't get a job. Yeah, they're marketing now. And you're like, well, they're not really good at life. I don't know why they're going to be good at your company doing marketing, right? It's very interesting. Please don't take this the wrong way if your step uncle is the one that you have doing your marketing, but time to change. Anyways, but there's there's that, and the right people, okay? But also the package. I think this is what, if you look at our website, so we preach everything that we do, everything that we talk about, we do the same thing. Okay, we build our business based on how we help people do it. So if you look at know who your market is, know who you're going after, but how much are you charging, right? And then you can easily extrapolate how many clients you need to make $1 million business in X amount of time. Very simple. It's just like, okay, well, I need 20 clients or I need 40 clients. This is what I need. Then you basically just backtrack it out and, okay, this is how I want to do it. But you should basically say, okay, I'm going to take my products. I'm going to take the few products that I have, the security products, which are very hot right now, add your managed services to it. Now, not traditional. Now, Jerod, you and I talked about this. It's hard to do traditional. The way for tomorrow's partner, it's a cloud managed service. It's cloud endpoints management. It's nothing to do with showing up and resetting printer drivers, right? We don't want that. That's a margin killer. It's a killer of profit, right?
Yes.
Killer profit, and then it's an increase in people calling you because they're just mad, and that just stinks anyways. I'd rather have people call me because they're interested in, or saying, "Hey, good job," right?
Yeah.
Right.
Not calling. Yes, agreed.
Yeah. So there's another question came from the audience here. So we're hitting what tools or best practices? Now what tools or best practices did you find helped you to provide consistent value and successfully navigate the recent disruption in the market? I would just, maybe this is the right path, but you're great at processes. You're great at identifying, okay, this is what we're doing. This is who we are. This is what we're selling. But am I on the right path? Am I on the right for like when you're working with Infinite? Was it the reason why you're successful is because you're very strict with your processes, or help me understand that?
I don't know if we were good at processes. I mean, I mean, I think we're just good at IT just in general. I think we understand the life cycle of IT, and I always ran my customers' environments like it was an enterprise IT environment at the end of the day, and that's always served me well. And we always said we brought enterprise level IT services down to the small and mid market business, right? That was kind of our goal when we started out. But as far as when you say navigating disruption in the market, I guess there's a few disruptive things happening in the market. Are you talking about cybersecurity or just in general COVID or from a remote work perspective? But I mean, there certainly were tools that helped us provide consistent value, and we definitely use process. We did everything pretty much the same way. And if you look at even delivering a security service, it doesn't really vary that much from client to client. The approach is almost always the same, right? There might be a few extra things you have to do, and it really does depend on if you're talking about operational security or if you're talking about compliance, because the compliance, we approach it the same way every single time. There's frameworks for that. We would use NIST, CSF, and boom, we had a mapping tool where we mapped HIPAA and everything else, CCPA, GDPR, everything mapped back to NIST, CSF, period, and that's how we ran our control frameworks. That's just the way to do it. And I think that's even what Microsoft does in their compliance manager, and that's the tool that I used was compliance manager. So and that's how we set that up. And so when we did compliance, that's how we'd approach it. If we're doing operational security, because I've always viewed them differently, and I think that larger companies view them differently as well. Because operational security is that's where the rubber hits the road is compliance. Sometimes there's some things that maybe you don't want this in scope or that in scope, because if you put it in scope, it's going to get tested, so on and so forth. And you kind of learn that over the years of working with the audit firms. But if you're talking about operational security, that just has to be done right, period. And so we just had a methodology of here's what we do. If you're talking about Office 365, here are the steps you take. And I had a run book, and that's what the Shield did, is essentially it was manage the process of becoming secure, but it also had exact directions on, look, we would look in their tenant, see how the configurations were, here's where the discrepancies are, and here's what it should be. And I went out and I documented those. In some cases, I was able to take that straight from Microsoft. In some cases, I disagreed, and we came up with our own. This is how we're going to do it. And then we did it all the same way. And so if you looked at all of our client environments, they were all pretty much a mirror of each other. They were configured very, very similarly to how we would approach things. And same thing in Azure, and then same thing with your on-prem infrastructure. We would deploy Azure ATP to the on-prem if they have an on-prem domain to gain that kind of identity security that you get in with Azure AD Premium P2 on the local domain. And we would deploy the Azure Information Protection clients on-premise tool to catalog their if they had on-prem file shares and stuff like that. Of course, our goal is also to balance all their infrastructure out into Azure 100% of the time if we could. And towards the end, before I sold, I wanted to almost require that. Like, look, if we're going to be your MSP, all your shit's moving to Azure. That's just all there is to it, because you drove down costs so much by doing that. And number one, they have less headaches. Everybody's happier if you do that. We make more money. You have less problems. It's just better, And so, but yeah, so I mean, I guess those are the things. But I don't know that there's a one size fits all. I think that every MSP is a little bit different, so you got to do you at the end of the day. And that's we did that, but I think that to scale an MSP, it has to be very process driven. So you need to find repeatable processes, repeatable ways of doing things. Everything from onboarding your employees and training somebody new up to help them come up through the ranks. All that becomes easier when you have everything as a process, pretty much. And
we'll get into this. Actually, I have another thought here. So there's one other question. I'll get back to this. The margins on doing security versus just doing MSP. I think you talked about there's this 5x. If we're just focusing on a lot of security stuff, it's 5x what we're normally doing on the MSP side. So with that being said, right? Okay, if you're transitioning the partner of tomorrow, which we talk about, let's really kind of look at what you should be doing tomorrow. Let's look at how do we increase your margins. Okay, so let's take a look at your business. Take 2 steps back. Let's work on the business, not just in the business. Work on it, right? That's how you make money. Now, another great question actually from the audience here. Again, it's just, hey, this is amazing. By the way, keep them coming here. Question: is talent acquisition a problem? We're seeing overinflated costs on technical resources right now. How did you approach that? You see it right now too. You saw it back then. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a tough one. Honestly, it was a problem. Talent acquisition is hard. I was in a nice spot in that most of my guys, at least my key engineer, my hardcore engineers, have been with me for almost all 15 years of Infinite. I just brought them with me from my previous place, and they kind of followed me around. But getting new guys was difficult. So we would try to skill up the ones we got, or we would do a lot of interns, and if they were good, we would hire them, and then we would train them ourselves, teach them the infinite way. And we built engineers ourselves. That's ultimately what I resigned myself to do. And we were in the Bay Area where it's been expensive forever there, right? So I mean, a decent tech is $100,000 a year, easy, right? I mean, we're talking like maybe a L1, L2 tech, right? You're going to have to pay that person $100,000, and then an engineer get on site, you're 175,000, 200,000 a year oftentimes. And so yeah, I mean, it's tough. I wish I had a secret sauce for that. I did manage to successfully use, outsourcing in some cases, but only for project work, not for our help desk. I wanted to always have control of the help desk, even though that was the one thing I probably wanted to outsource the most. The couple times I tried it, it was a disaster. It just never did work all that well. But engineering and project work we could outsource, but I had some deep partnerships and that evolved over many years. So those partners that I used for that, I'd had for 10, 12 years. And so we developed relationships. I made the owners a lot of money. And so they got the job done. And for that, I went to both Russia and to India sometimes. And then we did most of our development out of Russia, but we used an onshore-offshore method. And they always reported to an engineer here as well that kind of had control of it. And that's how I worked around some of that. But yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I think that one thing is that there is some relief, I think, on the horizon as you have this, whole new generation coming up that's lived and breathed computers their whole life. And I think there'll be a lot more talent on the market soon. It's just, until you get there, it's going to be what it is, right? So good luck with that. I don't know. I don't know. I have no good answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things we have to think about too is talent retention, and that's when you have somebody good. Look, you got to pay them. You can be constantly looking, constantly creating a lot more risk and problems for your business if you want to consistently try to underpay people. Some of the good ones you just have to take care of. You make sure that. But then also, I think there's certainly India. If you're looking for Azure resources, if you're looking for that. But I'm going to give you an idea here, and this is something you can take to the bank. Okay, this is a money-making idea for you, and it's going to help with talent acquisition. It's premier support for partners from Microsoft. This is a service that they provide for you, not advanced support, because advanced support has its own challenges. But Premier Support is great. And the reason why I love Premier Support, and I'm going to tell you the reason why, is because you can resell it. That's the reason why you want to use Premier Support. Now, it starts at around $3,000, $3,500, or $3,500 a month. It's like $32 to $36. It kind of goes up a little bit. You can have a Premier Support for contract all the way up to $1 million. Disney, I think, has like $1 million Premier Support contract every single month, right? I mean, it's huge. Now, the beauty of this is that this kind of helps hedge and bridge your talent acquisition and retention, because whenever you have a deep problem, a deep issue, you can always go to Microsoft to do it. But the money-making idea aspect of it is, hey, I'm going to show you a way right now that not only can you get Premier Support for yourself, just in case you have problems, but you can resell it. And that's how you do it. You then can now market it to potential clients and say, look, do you want to have Premier Support for Microsoft? Not many other partners provide this. Right, and this is the extra cost it's going to be on a monthly basis to get direct access to the highest level people. And I think it comes, from what I remember, it comes with 10 slots, so you can get 10 referenceable access points for different companies. Then I think you need to buy more, right? And then you bring them in, but then you can say, okay, hey, ABC Energy, big company, right? You sold them Premier Support for X amount of dollars. You can actually give them their own access point to come into that partner development manager that's going to help with that. So that's great. So hey, look, it's 11:55. Let's bring Jerod and Paul back up here just a second. I'm going to have Melody do this. First and foremost, want to say thank you, Jerod. Awesome. Really appreciate it, man. That was a great session here. And Paul, thank you again for coming today and talking about IAMCP. It's just so valuable, to have all these things. Jerod, do you have any last points?
Yeah, I do. So one of the things I guess I didn't think about on the technical resources side is we would partner with other MSPs a lot to get stuff done. So I was always pretty other MSP friendly. So I was in part of the Cloud Advisory Council at Microsoft for a lot of years. I built some pretty deep relationships there with those guys, and so we still collaborate with a lot of those guys today. In fact, I'm also trying to buy some of their businesses at Erdos, but yeah, and so we would partner with other MSPs where we needed to get stuff done. That maybe doesn't work so well for like trying to scale your help desk, but it can be a stopgap, and usually you can work something out. I mean, they certainly understand your pain in your business, so that's just potential way to do it, and we had a lot of success there. So
awesome. Paul, any last thoughts? Maybe you want to reference IAMCP again?
Just wanted to encourage everyone to go and visit iamcp.org and consider registering as a member to become part of the largest community of Microsoft partners. And Jerod, I just love your presentation, your discussion, incredibly informative.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really has been. And you're probably wondering what the heck this thing is back here. So my team, they thought they got me a 30-inch balloon, but it's like 60 inches. It's like my own like personal, hello, we're going to be taking this out today. It's going to be awesome, after this for birthday. But let me just go ahead and push that out there. Hey, let's go ahead and bring up our last thing. To get in touch with us, if you'd like to know a little bit more how we help our partners grow 40% year over year, or to get in touch with Jerod, there's his information there on LinkedIn. We're going to go ahead and post everybody else. We'll send out a copy of the recording and all that stuff to you. But please go to the Crancer company site on LinkedIn. Go ahead and join that. Okay, you can do that. Go to YouTube, because this is streaming on YouTube if you want to come back to that. We also do a lot of training videos because we're the training partner or learning partner for the U.S. subsidiary for Azure. We do 36 events a month training on, building a modern data warehouse with Synapse Analytics and Power BI and artificial intelligence and data modernization, all these things. You can go there and get some cool information there. Subscribe to us. If you want to get from the LinkedIn Live, you're like, hey, I want to get into the Teams platform where people are now talking back and forth. Hey, send us an email. Okay, send me an email. I think there's contact info up there. We'll get you the invite and all that kind of thing. But lastly, it's 11:58. We're going to get another great speaker at the end of this month. So it'll be last Friday of the month. I know we kind of we pivoted here because of the time frames, but we have some great speakers lined up, other Microsoft executives. And I want to say thanks so much. This is once again a learning hour, right? This is where we learn from each other. We ask questions. It's not a commercial. We just want to say, but we also love Microsoft. That's why we're talking all about Microsoft. I guess it could be a Microsoft commercial to a degree, right? But I'm not being paid. There's no lobbyists here saying, hey, Sherman, hey, I'm going to send you money to say more of this. No, this is completely on our own thing. So anyways, thanks so much for coming today. Really do appreciate it. This has been awesome. Jerod, thanks again. Paul, thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and bid you adieu. Talk to you guys later. I'm going to jump in.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.